I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Natrona County Planning and Zoning Commission. And we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So first of all, I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. So this is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Natrona County Planning and Zoning Commission. For introductions, my name is Hal Hutchinson. I'm the chairman. We have Matt Mitchell to my far left, Planning and Zoning Commission member. To my immediate left is Chad Zeal, another Planning and Zoning Commission member. To my immediate right is Robert Grant, Planning and Zoning Commission member. We have Jason Gutierrez, who I guess had some surgery here today and can't make it to the meeting tonight, and he had told us before that would be the case, so he's not going to be here. We also have Christy Turner, who is the new Natrona County planner, effective about 2 weeks ago, I think, right? A week ago. Brand new. And to Christy's right is Charmaine Reed, the Deputy County Attorney. Everyone should know that this commission is an advisory board of the Natrona County Commissioners. Our decisions are subject to approval, conditional approval, denial, or modification by the Board of County Commissioners. Tonight's meeting is a work session, therefore there are no action items on the agenda. Everyone will have an opportunity to address the commission. Given that we have a fair number of folks in the audience, we'd like to have everyone limit your comments to 5 minutes. 5 minutes. So when the chair recognizes you, please come to the podium and clearly state your name and address before giving your comments. This is not a forum for public outcry or speaking from the audience. You must be recognized by the chair before addressing the commission, and if a person's conduct is out of order, the chair may give the person a warning. If the person continues the conduct, or if the conduct is extremely out of order, the person may be directed to leave immediately. So, with that, again, we have one item on the agenda tonight, and that's a review of the zoning rewrite that's been underway for the past several months. And Christy, do we have a staff report, or are we just going to launch into having Logan Simpson address us?
We're just going to launch into having Logan Simpson.
Okay, so we have Melissa Ruth with Logan Simpson, and they are the consultant that's been working on the zoning rewrite, among other projects for the Planning and Zoning Commission for the past couple of years at least. So with that, Melissa, would you like to come up and tell us what's going on with the zoning rewrite, please?
Alrighty. Thank you, Chair, Commission, for having me here tonight. I've got a quick presentation, and then I've broken down each of the chapters, the changes by chapter, so the memos that you've received. All of that information is in the slides. So I'd like to walk through the changes by chapter and then answer any questions that you might have on that, but not a super long presentation tonight. This is the agenda that I just went over, so work session goal, kind of the feedback we're looking to get from you all tonight. Quick overview and review of the process and timeline, the overall revisions, the public comment that I've received on the draft since I sent you the last memo and this draft that you're looking at, revisions by chapter, and then any outstanding questions that you all might have for me. The goal of this work session is to get your support of the proposed changes to the zoning resolution or any modifications that need to be made and resolve any outstanding questions, concerns, or discussion items. quick background on what the zoning resolution is, because it's been a long time since I've been here to talk to you about it. The zoning resolution is a set of regulations that detail what each parcel can be used for based off of the development plan. Looks at housing, shopping, open space, all of the above. It also supplements the county's subdivision resolution, which is the primary regulatory document that the county uses to ensure quality development. So your zoning and your subdivision resolution work together, but they are separate. The zoning resolution looks at design standards, zoning and land uses, building setbacks, parking standards, density, intensity, application procedures, and building height. But it does not look at anything related to subdivision or platting or those application processes. Why update the zoning resolution? And the slide should look familiar. I think I've shown it every time I've been in front of you all. The county's current zoning resolution was adopted in 2000 and has only seen minor revisions since its initial adoption. The purpose is to modernize and simplify the language in the code to reflect the community desires and best practice, to align it with the 2016 development plan, update and clarify definitions for ease of use, make the right things easy. Development that reflects the long-term planning policies in Natrona County should have the streamlined approval process with standards that align with the desired development patterns. And last but not least, to balance flexibility and certainty. It's a fine line to walk, but it's something that we've tried through this drafting process, and we want to make sure we got it right. The updated code should balance the benefits of clear, objective standards with common sense flexibility that preserves the consistency of the development plan. This is our timeline. It's been about a 2-year process from start to kind of finish. We started back in December of 2021 with internal code review, some community interviews, a public questionnaire, and a public open house. Through March and May, we met with our steering committee, drafted an assessment report, and then through the summer of 2021, came to you all, talked about the process, what you wanted to get out of it, did the same thing with the Board of County Commissioners, and started to draft the document. We drafted in modules, so we drafted each of the chapters individually, brought them back to the steering committee to review in smaller chunks. We finished that process in about April of this year, met 2 more times with the steering committee to go through the document again, then met with a subgroup of residents from the mountain following the Casper Mountain Land Use Plan adoption to workshop the MR1 and 2 zone districts and the new resort commercial zone district. So that was in June and July, came back to the steering committee with the final draft just last month. And then now we're here in front of you. We do have another public open house next Monday where we'll give kind of the same information, have the opportunity for people to ask questions and comments about the document. I bring this slide back up because this is something we worked with our steering committee and staff to kind of guide the process, what is the mission statement? And this does come from the county development plan. Natrona County is a unique place to live with abundant natural, cultural, historic resources, open space, and outdoor opportunities. Cherish our community values and quality of life. Understand that the economy of our county is changing and recognize our existing economic foundations and necessity to strengthen and diversify the county's economy. And we wish to preserve and enhance our cultural, historic heritage and our community values while enhancing our quality of life through responsible growth. I know those are a lot of words, but this is the lens that we've looked at the development or the zoning resolution update process through. So we've tried to keep all of these things in mind as we're looking at updates or removing standards, adding standards, clarifying things. This is what we've tried to keep in mind. So down to the nitty-gritty of what we've done. The overall zoning resolution updates. We replaced all building standards and references to buildings with references to the Natrona County Building Code to ensure consistency across all documents. There were quite a few sections where there were specific standards that are building code requirements or within the building code. Those have been replaced with the reference to the Natrona County Building Code. We developed additional graphics and tables for the dimensional standards, use allowances, and measurements. Most of the graphics that you see in the document are new. We replaced lists or paragraphs of language with those graphics to be more clear and be a little bit more direct with what we're saying. We revised all uses of the word should, encourage, and may, and either replaced those with standards using the word shall, or we removed them. We consolidated language pertaining to public hearing procedures into a single process. So there were a couple different places that the hearing procedures were located. That all ended up in one section. We also defined all terms and indicated those with italics and underlines. We hyperlinked across for all cross-references, so especially in the use table, you'll see the cross-references to each of the sections. And then we replaced language copied from Wyoming state statute with the reference to the statute, so that if those statutes are updated, you don't have to go back and amend your resolution. I will note that there are a few of these that we do know we need to go back in and update. There's a couple inconsistencies with some capitalization. There's another term that I found that was in the definitions, so it's underlined and italicized, but we've removed that definition and located it somewhere else. So there's a couple small consistencies that staff and I are working through to make sure we've got everything buttoned up when we bring you the final or after today, and can incorporate any comments that you all have. So since I sent you the document, or since you received the document a couple weeks ago with the memo, this is the public comment that we have received. Some of it from a commissioner and then some from the public. There were some suggested revisions to the indoor firearm range and outdoor firearm range standards to remove the language under the design standards section and reference the NRA design manual. That document I have not been able to locate. So what's currently referenced is the 2012 Department of Energy range design standards. There was also suggested revisions to the campground sections to remove the requirement for bear-proof trash and instead reference the need if there is a wildlife need, and then remove the 14 consecutive days occupancy limit for small-scale campgrounds. There was a recommendation to remove the design standards from the MR1 and 2 zone districts that reference Firewise design and the International Wildland Urban Interface Code standards, and just reference that document instead as a recommendation but not a requirement. A recommendation to remove the 120 square foot requirement language from the accessory structure and reference the building code definition of accessory building. And then revise section 5.04 development plan, section D4, which is the application criteria, to clarify the application criteria are factors to be considered, not approval criteria which must be met to approve an application. I just checked about 10 minutes ago to see if there were any additional comments. There was a couple questions, one regarding the Hartford Airport, but no additional comments have been received as of 5:30 this evening. So updates by chapter. These are, again, all of the pieces that are in the memo, so I can run through everything on this slide, or I can take questions by chapter, or comments by chapter if there are specific things you want to talk about in chapter 1, chapter 2, questions you have, whichever way you would like to do it. I don't want to bore you with a bunch of bullets. Okay. So.
Unless I might add one more thing. Jason Gutierrez has been the liaison for the planning and zoning commission for this entire deal. It's unfortunate that he couldn't be here this evening because he was on in his head and he's gathered over that 2-year period. So just want to throw that out there. I was hoping he could be here tonight.
Well, I can tell you this, Jason thinks this isn't done yet. He thinks it needs to go back to the drawing board on some things. He didn't tell me what, but he said he feels like it's being pushed through to get it done by the end of the year.
Okay.
So by chapter, that's the preference.
Okay, great. So chapter 1 is the general provisions chapter. We removed from the existing zoning resolution, chapter 2, section about lot reduction and lot combination. Those will be incorporated in the subdivision resolution. We removed the section referencing goals and policies because it was a direct translation from the development plan. They're already in the development plan. We incorporated them by reference. We added text clarifying the intent of text and graphics, maps and overlays, that they are not to be considered regulation, but are for illustrative purposes. Added language clarifying the maximum densities and intensities listed are not guaranteed. They are maximums. We added language regarding consistency with the 2016 Natrona County Development Plan and updated that reference. I think it said the 1997 County Development Plan. And then added provisions for transition from prior regulations. That's Chapter 1. Chapter 2 is the zone districts. We consolidated the existing Chapter 5 and Chapter 6 of the zoning resolution into a single chapter, removed the piece discussing the zone district history because it was not regulatory, it was just background. We combined the existing Chapter 5, Section 1, establishment of zone districts, zone district map, and uniform district regulations into just a general provision section at the beginning of the chapter. We revised the airport overlay district to remove requirements for all properties and to provide an aviation easement. I forgot to mention I do have Mark White on the phone. He is part of the consultant team with White and Smith. So he's an attorney and a planner. He's been working with us through this whole process. So if you have any questions, he is also on the phone. Mark White.
Mr. White, do you have a question?
No, I was just thinking a little bit.
It's just noting that he's here. Thanks, thanks, Mark. Apologies for not doing that sooner. We also revised the commercial and light industrial district standards to reflect a reduction in the number of residential uses in the zone district and focus on commercial and industrial zone district uses instead. And then we defined a maximum residential density for all zone districts except the ranching, agricultural, and mining, the RAM district, and the urban ag district. We also incorporated all uses listed in the existing appendices into a single chapter at the beginning of Chapter 2, incorporated bulk and dimensional regulations from Appendix C into the dimensional standards for each chapter, or for each zone district. We revised the existing Chapter 6, Section 16, Mountain Wildfire Safety Overlay District to meet the best practices of the 2018 International Wildland Urban Interface Code and incorporated those as standards under the MR1 and 2 zone district rather than an overlay. We removed the minimum district size. We replaced the term minimum open space with maximum lot coverage for clarity. We removed the BP soil protection district because it is covered by other state standards and DEQ standards. And then we revised the minimum lot size in the UR and the UMR districts to ensure that lots can be built upon and meet the requirements for the provision of water and service through the health department.
On MR1 and MR2, MR2 is 5 acres, MR1 is 10 acres.
Correct.
Is that way, what was it before this?
We didn't change them. They were 5 and 10.
They're the same. So that's staying the same.
Yes, these are the changes, great transition. These are the changes that were that came out of the Casper Mountain Subcommittee group that we met with. We left all of the dimensional standards, all the setbacks, the minimum lot sizes, all of those are the same. The only thing that was removed was, again, that minimum district size. We did add a residential density for the MR1 as 1 primary residential structure per 10 acres, and then 1 ADU per 10 acres with an exemption if you are an agricultural property as defined by tax status. So if you're an ag property as defined by your tax status, you are not bound with the 1 ADU per property or per 10 acres. We also revised the uses to focus on agricultural uses by right, limited commercial uses allowed under a conditional use permit, and then campgrounds under a conditional use permit. For MR2, primary residential, put a maximum density of 1 primary residential structure per 5 acres and 1 ADU per property. We added the allowance for a light agricultural use by right, Again, limited the commercial uses to those existing on the mountain in that zone district. And then we added a resort commercial zone district, specifically catering to that Hogadon ski area that we talked about during the Casper Mountain Land Use Plan. So we designed that zone district. It's fairly similar to the commercial zone district you have, but the uses focus specifically on uses that would build upon the Hogadon ski area and kind of base off of that. That's chapter 2.
Melissa, one question if I might.
Absolutely.
So, going back to the mountain
Mhm.
work that we have done.
Mhm.
It was also mentioned that along that, I think it's 10 miles,
Mhm.
that along the western edge of that study area was the river. And we also talked about, similar to what you talked about, the Hogan, special commercial, we talked about, we've got guided, flow trips, and there's some lodges up on the river.
Mhm.
That would also be an area identified for special commercial use.
So we didn't identify it for commercial use, but those uses are allowed. I'd have to check the zoning over there. But based off of zone districts, you are still allowed, if it's the UA zone district, the MR2 zone district, you can still do some of the lighter commercial uses by conditional use permit. But I'd have to check the actual zoning in that area to be sure. It doesn't have its own commercial area because we didn't identify that through the land use plan process. Okay, I'll make a note. Okay. Any other questions on chapter 2? Okay. Moving right along, chapter 3, it is a large chapter. This is your development standards chapter. We combined chapter 7, off-street parking, and then section 2, off-street loading spaces, access drives, into a single parking and loading section. So they're not in a whole bunch of sections, they're just in one. We incorporated Appendix D, the table of parking requirements, into a parking and loading table in that same section. We clarified the appropriate fencing and landscaping materials to ensure consistency with state and federal standards. We updated the sign regulations to focus on content neutrality and comply with federal law. We combined Chapter 7, Section 7, nuisance standards and storage requirements with other enforcement sections. The enforcement section has been removed from the zoning resolution. We are working with county staff to revise that and bring that back into the zoning resolution. A previous planning director, we had brought it out, we're bringing it back in, and it'll end up likely in Chapter 5 administration with the nuisance. We removed the CUP standards detailed in Chapter 7, Section 13 for correctional facilities and incorporated them as general standards for all CUP applications because they were pretty general. We removed duplicative language and procedures and standards from the flood damage prevention regulations. There was a couple of sections that were the same as what you have in your application procedures. This section we didn't do the flood damage prevention. We didn't do a lot of updating to it because it is a FEMA-approved ordinance. So we didn't make a whole lot of changes to it because FEMA's generally okay with it. We didn't want to mess with that approval process. We did remove the entire Section 19 stormwater management program because it was a copy and paste of the Wyoming Department of Environmental Quality standards and stormwater standards. That's Chapter 3. Okay. Chapter 4 is your use standards chapter. Throughout the document, we changed the term single-family dwelling to single-unit dwelling to reference the structure rather than the occupants. We simplified and condensed Chapter 7, Section 14, special aggregate regulations into the use extractive industry and referenced the DEQ mining regulations because that's kind of what they were referencing already. We just removed that language and put the reference in instead. We revised the standards for group homes, adult entertainment businesses, communication towers, and wireless telecom facilities to comply with federal standards and statutes. We removed building code standards, such as those pertaining to electrical and plumbing requirements in the manufactured home section. We removed standards stating that collector cars are a limited conditional use that runs with the land. All conditional use permits do need to run with the land, not the property owner. We consolidated similar uses for clarity. This one starred because I didn't list them all out, but we took a lot of the uses that were just listed, so a lot of the agricultural uses that were kind of similar in intensity, so livestock feeding, a dairy facility, and combined them into a single use for clarity and understanding of what those standards were. We defined and provided standards for all uses. We revised all timelines and deadlines to match state and federal statutes. Alphabetized Table 4.022, Table of Allowed Uses, to match the order of use standards. There was a Y in that table, and I replaced those with all of the links, hyperlinks to the sections, so that you can link back and forth between the sections and the standards. We removed the use the use agricultural residence. This was a new use that we talked about with the steering committee to allow multiple dwellings on a property related to ag. When we removed or didn't add a maximum allowed density for the RAM and UA, we decided that we were okay to remove this because it was specifically pertaining to ag. So we added an exemption for ag instead. We added a special event as a temporary use and provided standards for those. We clarified the allowance for accessory structures to be permitted if plans for principal use or building are submitted to the applicable director in section 4.104 general standards. We deleted the owner occupancy requirement for bed and breakfast. We reduced the minimum lot size for campgrounds. From the last draft that you saw, it was 40 acres. That went down to 4 to match the existing permitted campgrounds. And then for commercial small-scale campgrounds, we went from 20 to 2, again, to match existing permitted campgrounds. We updated section 4.11.04, supplemental temporary use standards, to clarify the requirements for temporary dwellings. And then we updated the terminology for childcare facility, family childcare home, family childcare center, to match the Wyoming Department of Family Services terminology. That's chapter 4. Chapter 4 is your largest section. A large portion of it is new. As you saw, a lot of it revising to clarify or to meet state and federal statutes. Chapter 5 is your administration and application procedures. It is a combination of the existing Chapter 4 permits, Chapter 9 non-conforming lots, structures and uses, Chapter 10 the zone map and text amendments, and Chapter 11 variances and conditional use permits. We removed the redundant application procedures and developed a general application procedure to detail the procedure for all applications right at the beginning of the chapter. We created a table to detail the review and decision-making bodies, so when you come in for an application, you can see, do I need to go to Planning Commission? Is it a hearing? And then do I go to board? What is the public notice requirement? We did remove all the posted notice requirements for applications. We developed a separate sign permit process. We developed standards to address different ownership types for building and use permits, so the contract for deed, we addressed that issue. We developed standards to allow accessory buildings prior to a main residence if the main residence is under construction. We changed the written notice requirement to reflect 1,000 feet excluding rights-of-way. We updated the public notice requirement to reflect a 14-day notice prior to the public hearing for consistency with state statute. Added a definition for lapse of approval. Added provisions for defining discontinuance of a use, especially for pasture and crop resting rotation. Added standards to clarify the ability or inability to expand a conforming portion of a non-conforming use. And we revised the non-conformity regulations to minimize impact on property owners and allow minimal expansion of non-conforming uses and features. That's chapter 5. Okay. Chapter 6 is easy. It's all of your definitions. We relocated the definitions that existed in Chapter 4 as well as throughout the resolution. We defined all undefined terms, and then we reconciled conflicting definitions. So there were definitions that were, there were multiple definitions for the same term. We reconciled all of those. And then all of your use standard, or all of your uses are defined within the use chapter rather than the definitions chapter. That is your update to the zoning. That's the detail of all of the changes. Again, all of that's in all of the memos that I sent over. The last piece is next steps. So I'll stand for any questions that you all have. Again, it's a process that's been going on for about 2 years. We've been working with the steering committee, brought things out to the public at the beginning of the process, have worked with staff, the county attorney. We had a Board of County Commissioner member on our steering committee, and yeah, I'll stand for any questions that you all have.
Any questions from the board?
Can I remind the commission to turn on their mic so we can get it recorded?
I think it looks very good. I like the way it's condensed and the hyperlinks in there, to be able to go back and forth and see what, and the way it's going back to state and federal regulations instead of just a county thing.
Thank you. It does represent about a 50-page reduction in the zoning resolution. It's a question that's come up a couple times, so I looked it up.
Any other comments, questions? So, obviously, there's a tremendous amount of detail here, and as you said, it's been going on for a long time, and we've been updated from time to time as the process. We've seen you, every 4 months, 6 months, or something like that.
About every 4 months, yeah.
Yeah, so we've made comments along the way, and just a whole lot of detail. And best we can tell, it's been addressed. Little comments like I made on the mountain use plan and the commercial areas. So, thank you for the effort. And Christy, I guess we've got a lot of folks in the audience, I guess, that have heard the same presentation by Logan Simpson. Is the idea to have a public hearing with comments tonight?
Mr. Chair, tonight is not the official public hearing for this. The resolution has to be advertised for 45 days before the official hearing can be held. My understanding is tonight's just to kind of lay out what there is and see if the board, the commissioners want any changes before we get to the more finalized version.
So I guess what I had in mind was a public hearing for the purpose of Planning and Zoning Commission consideration tonight, not a public hearing that would go along with the Board of County Commissioners process.
So I think that is the intent of tonight, is for you to hear what the public has to say, not statutorily required, but just to help understand.
Okay, as part of a work session format, and so I just say, okay, anybody that's got any comments, come on up and let's hear what you have to say. 5 minute, yes. Okay. Any other questions for Melissa, Logan Simpson, before we have the folks in the audience come up and let us know what they're thinking? Thank you, Melissa. You're sticking around, I hope, so that you can maybe shed some light on some of these questions that we might have come
Oh,
up.
yeah, I'll be right here.
All right, great.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so I think you guys have heard the format. We're in a work session format. and you have seen the presentation given on the zoning rewrite. The Planning and Zoning Commission is interested in what you guys have to say, and you guys picked up and came here at dinner time tonight. We appreciate you coming out, and if you have something you want to add, please come forward. Again, limit your presentation to 5 minutes. We ask that you give your name and address to start out with. So the podium's open for whomever.
Michael Corrigan, 7459 East Geary Dome Road, Evansville.
Yes, sir.
Wow, starting a rumor mill. It is hot and heavy out there, and I'm trying to fend it off as best I can, but everybody thinks you're banning horses, cows, to RVs. I got a copy, I will read it, but wow, this thing's gotten wild over just a few days. I did hear something a while back that most of the steering committee quit. Can anybody enlighten me as to why most of them quit?
Steering committee for,
The steering committee for this rewrite.
I guess I'm not familiar with that. And unfortunately, Mike, we've had quite a bit of turnover in the planning office in the last 6 weeks, month.
I've heard about that too.
I'm not sure we can answer your question unless Charmaine or Christie want to jump in.
Unfortunately, I do not have any information. I haven't met with any of the members of the steering team.
Can I get that information at some point?
We can certainly check into it and find out.
Appreciate it. I got a couple questions. I really don't have not read 200 pages. I got it tonight. But I heard a word that really startled me. Replace should with shall. It always scares me. I mean, anytime we're talking about doing that, it's bothersome. Also, a question I have is, why is the county pushing to be more regulatory than the city is on most of their building and their zoning? Most of us, myself included, moved to the county specifically to get away from city regulations. I know Chad lives out in the county. I do, all my neighbors do. We're all concerned about this. I'm telling you, I moved out there in 2000. All I've done was fight with the county on regulations for just normal things that I want to do on my acreage. And I'm not trying to do anything crazy. I had problems trying to get property ready to sell, if you recall. Everything had to be absolutely perfect before, and then on the county commission, they had to threaten the chairman. It's crazy. This is not right. We live out there to have less regulations. Okay, her statement about NRA regulations, I guess I'd have to ask if she went out to Stuckenoff Shooting Complex and asked them for a phone number. I know the NRA is very good at answering questions on all shooting ranges. I can attest to that. I have worked with them for decades. I don't know how it would be difficult to get a hold of them. And yeah, I can get a hold of them if nobody else can. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Corrigan. Anyone else in the audience wishing to address the Planning and Zoning Commission on the zoning rewrite? Hello.
Hello. My name's Linda Bergeron. I live at 2355 South Larkspur in Casper. I got my notice just about a week ago, and so I wasn't aware of all this. I haven't paid attention like I should have. That's an error on my part, but I'm very interested in this. I've only read about the first quarter of it. I do have some questions. The floodplain regulations concern me. Now, I don't know if that is in new development. I didn't have time to go through the document and find out where the headings were, but it's imposing more stringent regulations, which it says shall prevail. And in Section G, CC of general provisions, no structure or land shall hereafter be located, altered, or have its use changed without full compliance with the terms of this resolution and other applicable regulations. So is this talking about new development, or is that existing land use? It's on about page 43, right in there.
Ms. Bergeron, I think in the interest of moving things along, we're taking notes,
Okay,
and we got your name and we got your address, so we'll have to follow up with that, but expecting an answer on everybody's
okay, that's fine. I'll go
thought
along with
tonight
that.
might be too much.
Okay, okay. The floodplain concerns me about requiring insurance. It's very hard to get insurance for a floodplain area, and I think the public should be very involved in the designation of those floodplains. We live in an area that could be extended into that, and that insurance, my husband and I were talking, one of our neighbors tried to get floodplain insurance, and he couldn't get it for just the river area. It would have to be like in Dallas, that it includes a whole flood, any area that a flood would rush through. So it's something that needs to be discussed, I really believe. And another thing that concerns me in her talk, she very often referred to it's being revised to comply with federal regulations. I think that we need to be less concerned with international and federal and pay attention to what we want to do locally and statewide especially. So that's a big concern for me. I've fought for this for years, and for this to be taken away is a big concern. In Chapter 5, to remove post notice before application. So we had an incident in our area.
I'm sorry, can I ask you to turn the mic back on?
I didn't turn it off. Oh, no, turn it back on? Is it on now?
I don't think so.
Is there a green light on it?
No, it's red. But I don't know how to turn it on. Oh, you do this?
Absolutely.
Thank you kindly.
So, Ms. Bergeron, I've got you at about 3 minutes, so
Okay, I don't have much more.
a couple more minutes.
Okay. When she spoke this evening in Chapter 5, she said that they removed the post notice before the application. We had incident in our neighborhood where they were trying to put a big apartment complex right in the middle of a very rural area. And without that post notice, that probably would have slid right on by without the neighborhood knowing about it. So I think that needs to be put in. In fact, I'll lobby for that to be put back in. Okay, and then she also mentioned that the 14-day prior to public hearing notice would be taken out. Now, that's another big concern, because I would have followed a lot of this through had I known more about it. I've just had a busy life lately and haven't been able to get to the meetings. So those two notices are extremely important, and I think they need to be put back in. It's concerning that they were taken out. We really need to be very careful that we include the community and the property owners. I think we're moving very close to more federally oriented regulations in this write-up, so I'm concerned. So that's my comments for this evening. I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much for coming forward with yours. And done nicely on time, too, I might add. Anyone else?
Yeah, my name is Bruce Coates, 5454 Coates Road, Field Creek Ranch is trust. Basically, from what I understand, there's basically simplifying a lot of the rewrite for the agriculture and the rural, as for what I see. We're a trusted where we have the family trust. What the ranch goes into, everybody contributes. We work off the K forms. So really, there's no changes to the ag status other than we are a trust. So I don't know how the planning commission looks at the way trusts are as far as taxes and how everything lays out. I see really no real change. I haven't read through the new planning thing, but where they're at that. But one of my main concerns is when we're doing this development. I don't know if we're looking at, we need to put in, I seen they stepped on the boundary on it because we're right up on the base on Casper Mountain and up on Casper Mountain, is the wildlife, how we're treating the wildlife. I think when we're looking at doing these zonings and we're moving this urban sprawl, we have 1,400 acres there, and I'm probably hosting 400 head of antelope in a locked area because of the Webb Creek and where I'm at. I don't believe anybody's ever looked at what happens when we landlock these animals. We're in their domain. So I'm just saying if there's, I don't know. I think it's something that needs to be addressed. Whenever you're looking at a new development, we have to look at the wildlife thing. And then the other question I had is on this development, she touched on that for permitting. How does that clarify for agriculture outbuildings? Like say you want to build a new barn or whatever. I know we've done it in the past. We had to do just through the pole barn regulations, but if we're going to have to go through a permitting process, do I have to say I'm going to give you 45 days doing all this and other than just being able to build an outbuilding on the ranch? I see no clarification for that. And that's really all I have, so.
Thank you, sir. Very good
bet.
insight. Game
You
and
bet.
fish, I guess I didn't think of that one, so Melissa, I don't know if that was a consultation we had made, but certainly that's something we should add in our list. Hello, sir.
Hello, my name's Scott Ames. I live at 3703 Frontier Street in Casper, Wyoming, which is located out on BB Brooks. I'm actually one of the board of directors out there. And I haven't had the opportunity to go through all the rewrite. I was here, actually, I shouldn't say that here. I attended the sessions last year at the county building down by the fairgrounds. Try to educate myself as far as what changes were going to be made and so on and so forth. Our actual annual HOA meeting is tomorrow, so I'm trying to get as much information as I can. I guess my biggest question is, and I don't really know, is what changes is this going to have in regards to BB Brooks and the ranches out there? We are zoned as residential ag as well as RAM. So I guess my question to her would be, what would the changes be? So I know I'm not going to get that answer necessarily tonight, but how will we go about getting, will this be posted as far as all the changes and all? And will it specify as far as what changes are being made as opposed to what we had before?
I'm going to ask that Melissa, maybe you can check in with her after the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And
I can do that.
And she can give you some insight on, in time for your HOA meeting tomorrow. That's what you're looking for, right?
That would be great.
And as far as, everything that might affect BB Brooks, I bet that would be a pretty lengthy deal with, who knows what the implications are.
Yeah.
So,
So.
tough question.
Hopefully, it's not a lot. I know there's been a lot of discussion in regards to the mountain and all the changes going on up in the mountain and all, but, I mean, BB Brooks, we're pretty well spread out there, and we as a board try to monitor as far as what's taking place. And again, as far as any type of construction or whatever, they need to get permission from us first, and then from there, they go to the county inspection services. So, again, we always try to keep up as far as what kind of changes are coming our way, whether we approve them or not. So, anyways, I thank
Refresh
you
my
for your
memory.
time.
How large is BB Brooks? How many acres is that up there?
It's approximately 30,000 acres.
Oh.
And most of the ranches are approximately 40 acres, although there are some that are 60, some that are 80. And we also have, like the gentleman was mentioning, as far as the wildlife goes, we also have large tracts of state as well as federal, a lot of BLM land and so on and so forth out there as well. And quite a number of wildlife of various types, so, along with Mr. Gerard's cattle out there for grazing as well. So we try to keep up on everything, but again, most of the people moved out there or purchased out there because they didn't want all the regulations and everything else that's coming down the pike at us. And that's, again, a reason for our concern as far as what type of changes are coming down the pike at us. So I will meet with, I'm sorry, your name? Melissa. Melissa, I'll meet with Melissa after the meeting then.
Okay.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Ames.
And in regards to this plan, is it all online now?
Mr. Chairman, it's posted on the main page for the Natrona County. At the very bottom, there's a zoning rewrite link
Okay.
that takes you to the hosted page through Logan Simpson. And the full document is available to scroll through either online or download as a PDF.
Okay.
Last I saw, it was 208 pages.
Yes, sir, you are correct.
A lot of late night reading for you there.
All right, thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi,
Hello.
Christine Gerard, 4,000 Horse Ranch Creek Road. I do have a few questions and recommendations. I'm not real sure about how this protocol goes. I know that this is open for discussion tonight, and so I just wanted to bring a few observations and maybe some recommendations. I don't know what you guys can do for the topics that I am recommending or wanting you to consider, so I
We'd certainly
appreciate
like to
your
hear what
time.
you have to say.
What's that?
We'd certainly like to hear what you have to say.
Okay. So I have recommendations for this rewrite specifically, I think, relating to Chapter 4, which was stated that it's one of the larger rewrites of this resolution. I notice a lot of rewriting for the wireless communication facilities and whatnot, but none for the wind tower facilities. And I think it's been many, many years since anything was put in regarding those. It's very vague as far as when I went back and looked at your current resolution. There's really not much there. There's a couple things regarding setbacks, I think, but as far as what I could see, there wasn't a lot. I know that there's some statutes maybe cited in there, but I'd like to see more on a local level. So these are my recommendations. And I do want to remind you and everyone here and everyone watching or listening that the board voted against a current proposed wind farm, and I believe part of it was due to the lack of regulations and maybe some other things too. There was like 5 criteria, I think. Which it was overturned by the BOC and then approved and by them. So this is why I'm here. I think we need to start somewhere, and I think if we had stronger regulations on this level, it would probably help. So I will hurry through my list and list those. So one question I do have is, looking at the table, excuse me, 40102-2, was there any changes in relation to RAM for, sorry, let me find my notes, pertaining to the conditional use permit, or is it just permitted now without a conditional use? I don't know, maybe I'm confused when I look at that, but to me, when I look at it, it looks like it's just going to be permitted without a conditional use, or am I wrong when I look at that?
We'll take.
Okay.
duly
Yeah,
noted.
that's just a question I had, if you can look at that, because that probably wouldn't be okay with the majority of Natrona County people. Let's see. I also thought I read that only mineral right owners will be notified in the future with proposed projects related to the wind farms. So I don't know if, again, that's something that I'm misreading and not understanding. So if you can take a look at that, maybe some answers. I don't know if I'm looking at that right. Okay, so these are my recommendations for this rewrite topic regarding wind energy facilities or wind energy conversion systems, however you want to call it, wind farms. I would propose additional application requirements, and under this section, there's a lot there, but related to power purchase agreement. I do think that there needs to be a future of knowing that if this is actually producing something. I want to remind everybody that there's still no power purchase agreement for the solar panels in Bar None that I'm aware of. Maintenance plan, specific decommissioning plan, waste management plan, transportation plan, a completed environmental assessment, not saying that they're going to meet that criteria and then they're, going to go ahead and complete that by flying over our land for the next 2 years. Sound modeling report, stray voltage assessment, shadow flicker analysis, auto de-icing system, proof of liability insurance that will cover damage, destruction, or health effects to adjacent properties, ranches, businesses, and their owners or the livestock. Adequate application notification and review, time for the citizens of Natrona County. So before, and just like we're going through now with the DEQ, we don't have a lot of time as citizens to prepare for things, yet the wind energy facilities have years. And so I don't think that's appropriate or fair. Not even to find your own attorney, really, because you can't get one here to represent things like that, typically. Specific commercial noise regulations, including max noise levels measured by dBA. Noise regulations will also require infrasound acoustic pressure levels, which I was very passionate about when I spoke with the commissioners, and it is real, just a side note. These levels be taken indoors and outdoors of non-participating properties. So instead of taking these tests along the other side of the turbines, where the turbines are going to go on the the property owner. Maybe we should look at the other homes that will be affected that don't want them there. Site and use standards requirements, setbacks of non-participating landowner, so a minimum setback of maybe 3,000 feet or 5 times from the tip of the blade. Max height of 300 or 350, not 550, that's a little big in my opinion. Ground clearance of 100 feet, I don't know if that's appropriate, I just saw that somewhere, but something to look at. Must not produce shadow flicker on non-participating properties, and I'm almost done, sorry. Must not interfere with radio, television, dish, or other communication devices. Now, I noticed on the application from what's going on now that they said they had a reference to the FCC, but they didn't reference that it would not interfere with these things, and I truly believe they will at our home. So that's something that we need to look at and have in line. Underground lines may be required. I don't know much about that, but road repairs, who's going to pay for all that? Is the county? Are we taxpayers? Are we paying for all that? I know that we're supposed to get kickbacks and money for that, but how much are we really pulling out of our pockets? We've seen a lot of stuff lately that's actually going to go to the DEQ from the county and the cities in Evansville and Barnum and all over the place. So that's something that we need to look at. Almost done. Specific financial security and bonds, I want specific information. Complaint resolution, notification of change in ownership or operation. These things change hands a lot, and are they really supposed to follow those standards that they were told to when it switches owners? And annual reporting related to safety, operation, and revenue to county, city, and state, et cetera. Sorry that I know that was a lot, but I appreciate your time. Do you have any questions?
Any questions for Ms. Gerard? I guess I have a question on the process. As folks are coming up, including Ms. Gerard, and they give us these detailed questions about everything you're talking about wind energy. How is that being addressed, Melissa? Will there be an addendum to the comments that don't necessarily call out these issues by the folks that bring them up tonight, but they'll be listed as a issue that was brought up on September 13th?
Yes, so typically what we do, I'm taking notes. If you do have detailed notes like that, though, I would love to have them, so I make sure I don't miss anything. Sure. And then we'll produce, throughout the process, we're keeping basically a running list of all public comments. We will then note how those have been either addressed or answer the questions, so that will be released kind of as I would assume, as a second addendum on the website. But we will be required to, or we will be noting, referencing, or addressing public comments as they are received.
So I'm hearing everyone that comes here tonight, comes up to the podium, is taking the time to come here tonight to address the Planning and Zoning Commission. You're taking notes, and we're audio taped, videotaped. We can go back and go through the tape if we need to, but every one of these comments will be written down, and there'll be maybe something in red as a reply in this addendum 2 that you're talking about.
That is how we have done this process before. When we do have a lot of public comments, we'll keep, it's basically in a spreadsheet that I'll then export where I've got if the comment was given in person or via the online platform or at the open house or via comment card, what the comment is, and then either how to address the question or how that has been addressed in the zoning resolution as a kind of a modification. You'll then get that as part of your packet. We can also put that up on the website kind of following the public open house. We can update it at whenever. I guess it depends on how often you all would like to see what the questions are and what the public comment is. Because we're taking them, I know the planning department's taking phone calls, emails. I know you've fielded dozens of calls so far. We have our open house next Monday. So we'll have a summary of the open house and the questions received then. So it's kind of up to you how you all would like to see the comments addressed. We're pretty flexible.
Okay, so I think it's, correct me if I'm wrong, Melissa, but everyone that has a comment tonight, your question or your concern has been listed and it'll be on a spreadsheet. We don't know when, but it will be incumbent on each of you that have comments tonight to go to this website and to look and see how your question or your concern is being answered. Nobody's going to personally call you and say, here's what we decided to do. There's just too much of that. Correct me if I'm wrong.
That's the way that we've done it before. Every time we've done a zoning resolution update, that's the way that we've done it, is we just note the comment. We can note the person. We don't tend to do that just for privacy's sake. We'll just note what the comment is, how it's either been addressed, or if it's a question, the answer to the question, or where they can find the answer to that question. But usually we don't reach back out to each of those individuals. We just post the whole thing for everybody to see so that everyone can see what the answer is to that question, because somebody else might have the same question.
So what would you recommend? Somebody take a look at that website once a week to see if and when it's been updated?
Yes, and you can also sign up for notices through the county website. I believe you can still sign up for the notice to get updates as that webpage is updated. I can set timeframes to update it, but it really is going to depend on how many questions and comments we get and how long it's going to take us to either address that question, work with staff to make sure that it's addressed properly, and then, address the open house and all of the kind of pieces that go with it.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
And I would also add that, or we would also, I get, that if you have questions along the way, we have a public office of Natrona County Planning and Zoning, Natrona County Building and Planning, I think it is. Write those guys, call those guys, and that's their responsibility. That's our job, to keep up with questions and basically the follow-up that we're talking about here. So thank you very much for coming forward
Thank you.
today. Anyone else in the audience wish to address the Planning and Zoning Commission having to do with the zoning rewrite? Mr. Snyder, how are you tonight?
I'm doing very well, thank you, sir. Andrew Schneider, 8711 Everett Lane. I just wanted to show up and say thank you all. It's been a real long process. We've acknowledged the turnover. I think you found a really great group of consultants, and they've shown through this process. They've been very dedicated. They've been very responsive, and I've seen things come to a stopping point where everyone has to take a step back and say, let's take our time, let's go slow, let's not rush through this. And as a result, you've managed to slim down what was a longer document into a much shorter document. I appreciate Commissioner Milne for stewarding some of these conversations, especially as a mountain resident. Things were going in a really bad direction, and the ship got turned around. Public input came forward. We had kind of a steering committee, I guess, just to focus on MR1 and 2 and the commercial uses around Hogadon. And from my vantage point and from the folks in my neighborhood, the community up there, there's support for what's in here going forward. So, yeah, keep it sweet and simple there. While I was sitting here in the meeting, I found 3 things that I thought, well, gosh, maybe I have a question about that, I have a comment about that, and I was able to note those on the online version from my laptop while I was here. So before the September 19th open house, if any neighbors are watching online, I encourage you to get to the county's website and heck, call me if you need help. I'll help you get on the computer and do it. So thank you all again.
Thank you. Any questions from Mr. Snyder I should ask first? Okay. Anyone else in the audience wish to let us know about a concern you have? Mr. Ames, I believe it was?
Mr. Ames, yes. Just a quick question. Is there anywhere in the document that will show what changes? What changes, like the original language and then the new language, if any, and what, as a result of that, what is the change? As opposed to trying to dig through.
We talked about that, and I'm gonna have to, I think, for a question that pertinent, I think we're gonna have to ask Melissa to tell us what's going on there.
I'm sure it's not going to be easy. I mean, when I went to the original workshop over at the county building last year, they had like dry eraser board, and people could make comments and so on and so forth. And the good majority of them were, it's my property, leave me alone, plain and simple. You know, I mean, I get it to a point where you need to keep enforcement, you need to ensure that the property is being used properly without interfering with the neighbors and so on and so forth. But in this day and age, people are getting sick and tired and fed up with city, county, federal, state, government butting in, to their property, or worse yet, telling them basically what they can and cannot do with their property, or limiting their uses of that property. So, again, it'd be a lot easier if we could see what changes are being made. And with that being said, if there's changes that we don't like, how soon, I take it the December 6th, is that when the county commission has basically etched this in stone and that's it? It's done?
That's on their schedule, and I guess I'll ask Charmaine if she's aware, but that's what I'm told, is that the Board of County Commissioners is set to consider the whole ball of wax on December 6th.
So what are our chances of, if we don't like something, or getting it reversed from where it is right now?
First thing comes to mind.
I understand that if we plan the zoning votes to table it on October 11th, that could change everything. Is that correct?
I don't know that you can table it.
So why we're here,
Well, you could reject it,
or reject it, I guess.
yes. And my answer is, I'm not sure. You may be able to table it, but I'm not certain.
Or,
But
I
it-
guess my thought was by tabling, you would be delaying the
Yeah.
process a little bit. not pushing
And I'm not saying that I have a problem with it, I just don't know what's changed, what hasn't changed. And with that, who makes that decision? Is that something that's been dictated from the state? Like basically what we found the last time with the turbines, we were basically told by the attorney that night, well, I should say, the county commissioners were advised that night, which the county commissioners, but when they were sitting in these seats, they were advised that basically they really didn't have an opportunity to deny it unless one of the I think there was 5 categories that they had to meet. If there was something wrong with that category, which the rules of the game were already written down at the state, and by the time it came here to the county, we pretty much had to follow lockstep as far as that goes. Needless to say, that irks me a little bit. I mean, this is our county, and we should be determining what's going on in our county, not at the state, and certainly not at the federal government. So I'll get off my soapbox. So thank you very much, gentlemen.
One thing I might add is you have another opportunity next Monday night out at the Ag Resource Building to come out and kind of shepherd your questions and concerns along. So I would certainly invite you and everyone else here to show up out
Yep.
there, and there'll be members of the board here, and I'm sure there'll be members of the county commissioners. So there's a great opportunity.
I'm sure I'll see you
in addition
next
to tonight.
week. We'll see how it goes with Melissa afterwards, so
Okay.
hopefully she has the answers that I need, so. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Hello.
Good evening. My name is Sterling Ingram. I live at 5772 Copperhead Drive in Emmonsville. I wasn't even going to speak tonight because I didn't even know about this until 2 days ago, is whenever I got the notice in the mail. And I've heard rumors of changes that are going to happen out there. I kind of echo what everybody else has been saying. I moved out there to get away from town. to get away from the rules and the regulations that we have to deal with. I could save thousands of dollars by moving back into town, but I choose to live out there. I don't like the reference to all the federal laws. We've seen what they can do over the last few years and how bad they can screw things up. I prefer to keep it at a state or, a more local level. And that's kind of all I have to say. I'm going to read through this the best I can, but now with these links, we're also going to have to reference the federal law in order to come up with some decent questions and be well informed come Monday. So,
Okay,
thank you for your time.
thank you.
I got a question. How many people were on the steering committee and what was it made up of? Or who, I should say, not of.
So at the beginning of the process, we had 7 or 8 steering committee members that were selected by county staff at the time that represented, we had Gary Lever, Luke Ginsbach, Jim Milne, Jason Gutierrez, Eric Nelson, county staff, the county planning director at the time, Leah Smith from the health department, Todd Kittle, and there was one other person, and their name is escaping me. Since then,
Jerry Cook.
yes, Jerry Cook, thank you. All of those members have received all of the information. Jerry Cook was the one that did leave he did request to be removed from the steering committee, so we removed him last summer. Every other member of the steering committee has received all of the same documents, the notices for all, or the notices of all the meetings. We've had kind of varying attendance, but everyone has received all of the information to date, all of those members.
How many of them were employees of the county?
Just Leah from the health department, the county planning director, and county legal representation.
Okay.
Melissa, while you're standing there,
Yes, sir.
could we get you to address Mr. Ames' question? How can you evaluate the current zoning document versus the new one? What's changed?
Yes, so this is a conversation that went back and forth with the steering committee, with legal staff. The first thing that we did was we reorganized the entire document. So when we started to produce what's considered a red line, where we're showing exactly which words have been crossed out, it was more difficult to use than it was able to understand. Usually we produce a red line document when we do something like this, but considering the reorganization that happened at the beginning, it is confusing. The best thing to look at is the memo, and we can make all of those memos that I sent to you, all 3 of them, available to the public and stick those on the same website so you can see what changes are made. It's the same information here, but there is not a red line specific document because it was like 680 pages and not a useful document in my mind. As far as how to comment and the opportunities to comment, the document is online. You can comment directly on the PDF. You can download the document and comment on it. The county, again, is taking comments via email, via phone, and in person. You can also come to the public open house and provide comment, where we'll have a lot of the similar information. Me and my team will be there to answer questions about specific sections if you have questions about them. And then each of these public hearings are an opportunity to provide additional comment. So the Planning Commission hearing on the 11th, Board of County Commissioner work session on October 18th, and then the Board of County Commissioner hearing on December 6th. So we're taking public comment really in any way that's most comfortable for people. I'm also happy to field phone calls or emails, either through Christy, she can defer them back to me, or we can talk about them. We want to make sure that we provide as much opportunity for public comment as possible, so we've tried to make it easy for everybody, but we want to meet people where they are, as far as, phone, email, in person, online.
So I guess I'd like just to emphasize opportunities to further follow up on what you talked about here tonight and find out what Logan Simpson has responded. And if you wake up in the middle of the night tonight and think, oh, I should have asked this, you've got next Monday, September 19th, out at the Ag Resources. You have October 18th, right here in this room with the county commissioners. What's that?
October 11th,
October 11th, back with you all.
your planning and zoning.
Oh, okay, yeah, back for us, and then county commissioners on the 18th, right?
Correct.
Okay, so 3 more public venues, I guess, that you can show up in person and ask questions and demand answers, I guess. Okay?
I got one other question. Justin might answer this, though. It said Natrona County building codes. So does that mean Natrona County's gonna write its own building codes? Why wouldn't it say state or national or federal building codes? He's on his way up.
I'll let Justin answer that one.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Zeal. The simple answer to that is that when we do adopt the various codes that we do in the county, the very beginning of the resolution formally names whatever document we're adopting the Natrona County, in this case, building code. So we don't write our own document, but that is how it is referred to in that resolution adopting it.
So a person will be able to find that at some point.
Yes, sir. On the building page for Natrona County website, all of the resolutions adopting the codes that we currently utilize, there are links to every single resolution, and then also on the page, you can find a link to those codes verbatim as well.
Thanks.
Pleasure.
Okay. Anyone else in the audience wish to address the commission tonight? Anything having to do with the zoning rewrite? One last time. All right. So I guess we've heard everything we're going to hear from the folks tonight. We have audio video of what we've done. We have handwritten notes. Staff has information to follow up with. Logan Simpson has information to follow up with. And we're going to be out of the Ag Resource Building next Monday evening. What time is that? 5:30 p.m.
Easier to read. Says 5.
That says 5:30. Public hearing, planning and zoning. Oh, that's tonight. Okay, never mind. Okay. So is there anything else for us tonight? Christie?
No, sir, I do not have anything else.
Okay. Anything from the board?
I'm good.
Rob?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. All right. So, seeing or hearing no more input, we're going to call an end of the meeting at 6:54 p.m. Thanks again, everyone, for showing up tonight and